Before I start the video, I just want to let you know what the main mods are, because I can guarantee you there are people down in the comments as we speak asking what mods I'm running. The main ones are Calamity and Thorium, though we did add in a few other tiny little mods on the side. As always, this was filmed directly on my Twitch, so if you want to go follow that, then do so. Anyway, let's go. Hour 1, like always, will start off with me launching the game. This time it was PS1 edition. So, this is better. We then created our character with the traditional fashion of hitting the random button and naming him Modded Cock. We then created a large world, and then chat voted on the name of the world, which, you guessed it, was gay. Upon spawning in, we noticed all the modded items in our inventory, one of them being a stand arrow that legit took me down to 1 HP. For the time being, we had no idea what kind of power we unlocked, so we'll come back to that later. And we also obtained the modded items from the mod Calamity, a starting bag that gave us a bunch of different items that will help us out, and these tryhard items that we are not activating comment section because I'm a pussy. And stop being like, it's normal mode, this guy sucks. Yes, comment section, I do suck. To emphasize how much I actually suck, we decided to face the King Slime. And, well... After chat calling me a big noob for about 5 minutes, we explored the right side of the map, which immediately came across into a crimson biome. Thank you, Terraria. We also found out a new mod I completely forgot I added into the pack, and this made every single goddamn mob drop an item called a Trump coin. Yeah, that is the right Trump you're thinking of. So we decided to move towards the left side of the map, and we found a chest which contained a completely new class in the modded spectrum, known as the Healer class. This was the worst class in single player, I think. So we avoided that class like the actual plague. Leading on from the Trump mod, there was actually a communist included. I wish I was making this up. Halfway through the hour, we found out that the stand arrow at the start of the game actually gave us a buff, and well... With our new friend lighting the way, we went digging in the icy caves in search for some loot. We found many different ores, heart crystals, Minecraft zombie, and we died. Arriving home, I started the grand tradition of building a house that you've never, ever seen before. I have a problem. And to finish off the hour, I showed chat my favorite TikTok.
Hey, get the fuck out of here.
Hour 2 had us completely furnishing the cockhouse. After completion, we went mining right next to our house, slowly starting to create a elevator. Along the journey, we also gained different types of items that would help improve our character. One of these items was a brand new item, which were hovering swords, a new accessory that has hovering swords, and also Hermes boots. Upon arriving home, we discovered a new NPC that really rubs in the whole Hermes boots thing. We decided to do a bit more exploring towards the left of the world, and we found this new modded biome, which in the background has Trump's true dream.
We're going to build a wall.
And this abomination. More exploring towards the left, we found the dungeon and a new type of ocean that damages you when you're in the water. This is called the sulfuric seas. This biome is my least favorite for many reasons, but we'll discuss that later on. Upon exploring the entire left side, we did a tad more mining and started to properly prepare ourselves for our first boss encounter. Our second boss encounter. You're not... Fuck you. Hour 3 began with us facing the Eye of Cthulhu, which was the dumbest fight I've ever participated in. Realizing we have no range items at all, we just stood there while Star Platinum just tickled the boss a little. So we walked back into our house, went through our chest and picked up like 70 throwing stars and went out to face the boss. Funniest point was when the boss died and he dropped a golden strand of hair, which makes Donald Trump potions. Why? But in all seriousness, the Eye dropped a new type of item called the Essence of Cthulhu, which every form of boss will drop in its own unique way. For example, the Eye of Cthulhu's item let us see really well in the nighttime, but not so good in the daytime. So with the success of our first defeated boss, we expanded the cockhouse ever so slightly, and then went up against our first modded boss, which is a Thunderbird. Apparently, I did not learn my mistake from the Eye of Cthulhu battle, because again, we had no ranged weapons to beat it. So we just stood there whilst Big Bird attacked us. I basically said screw it, walked all the way back to my house, which by the way was a longer distance since you can only summon this boss in the desert, went to the merchant, bought some shurikens, faced the boss, and we beat it. So moving on, I guess. With Big Bird defeated, we spent the rest of the hour exploring the underground desert, trying to find anything new. But what we did achieve was obtaining enough items to fight a new boss called the Desert Scourge, or Big Worm. Though thanks to my 2 floating swords, this boss was extremely easy. And we got a relatively rare drop from Big Worm, which was an egg that basically improves movement and defense, and also will be crafted into a very powerful item in the late game. We then finished off the hour by heading towards the Crimson, and then started to build the arena to first the Brain of Cthulhu and acquiring. Hour 4 had us finish off the arena, and then we went home to do some inventory space and grab some bullets for gun. We then went back to the Crimson to fight the Brain, which we won, obviously, because as per tradition, we went back home and expanded the cock a bit more, and then we went back to the underground desert. I found out if you went deep enough, you find a new sub-biome called the Sunken Sea, I think, which held a new boss slash mini-boss, which is a Big Clam. Once you kill him, he drops, drops an NPC, which later on will be extremely useful. We then went straight into the dungeon and fought Skeletron, though this Skeletron was, Jack's films, so I thank you, Terraria. Hour 5 had us explore the dungeon, nothing too different from the... Get the fuck out of here, Ren. Get the fuck out of here, Nami. Get the fuck out of here, Garbador. A new best girl in town, and that's Big Cube. Honestly, chat and I loved Big Cube so much that I actually got an artist to make Big Cube, which you can get if you sub to my Twitch. Haha, give me money. We then waved goodbye to Big Cube after looting the dungeon and headed back home and continued on our elevator, which I later on found out that the jungle of the world was actually right below us. It was that big. Keep in mind, our house is right next to spawn, and the jungle managed to seep its way over there. As we were about to reach hell, every fucking time, man. We also found this new room thing that summons a new boss later on. Halfway through the hour, we finally reached hell, which was somehow covered with water, and we also found a shadow chest, and I then realized we did not have a shadow key, so we had to head back to the dungeon to get one. That's alright, because we get to see a big cube. Whilst in the dungeon, a blood moon was occurring, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna head back to the surface and fight the monsters of the night, and also face a new mini boss called Patchwork, whom was actually relatively easy, I'm gonna be quite honest with you. So after we defeated him, we headed back to the dungeon, and then there was a goblin army, so don't worry, I won't worry about them until we get the shout. Never mind. We went back to the surface to fight the goblin army, and then we went back to the dungeon, and we also found the goblin tinkerer and a shadow key finally. We also discovered a brand new mechanic from I believe Calamity, which basically buffs the weapons from the class every time it levels up. Hour 6 had us heading down to hell with a new minion that we obtained from the dungeon, and we basically shat him out on the way down. When we reached hell, we explored for a tiny bit and mined hellstone along the way. But what makes modded so much easier is because of the mod I added known as Vein Miner. Basically, when you mine one piece of ore, the entire vein will disintegrate, allowing you to collect all of it as a chunk, making time mining hellstone a lot quicker. And so, within a few minutes, we headed back up to the surface to make full hellstone armor, tools, and weapons. We also received something called an Abyssal Bunny, which is just a cute little bunny that we called, well, we didn't really have a name for him, so go down in the comments, top comments wins. We're on our 6th hour, 5 hours in and some minutes, and we've already got full hellstone armor. I think we're missing something. Nah, let's go beat the wall. So, in the jungle, we found some form of underground volcano that wasn't really active. It looked really cool, but we never really found out what the structure did. I think it was just there. We ended up exploring the jungle. Nothing really new that was interesting to me, so we just gathered all the materials needed to craft the Blade of Grass, which would then let us gain enough resources to craft the That's not the Knight's Edge. This weapon actually has a chance to, you know, heal you, making it completely better than the Knight's Edge. Hour 7 had us heading towards the sky, which is now covered with orb. We then headed towards the island to gain some wings. Yes, you heard me. Wings. Pre-hard mode. Realizing we didn't have the materials to spawn, we then decided to fight 2 bosses. One of them being the King Slime that humiliated Humiliate that screwed us over at the start of the journey. We destroyed his ass. Then there's a new boss that's from the Crimson, which is a flesh umbrella that summons not one, but 3 worms as you progress. And the music, well, let's just say it woke me up a bit.
Fill it in a few different times just to kind of get a real deep cut.
Then after we kill the boss, a new ore will spawn in the world, I think, that would let us acquire these pre-hard mode wings. We also created a magical storage system, which if you've ever played modern Minecraft, it's like an ME system that doesn't require any power. To finish off the hour, we headed to the Acidic Oceans to participate in the Acidic Rain event, which has suicidal frogs.
My main goal is to blow up.
Hour 8 was a bit of a boss rush. We headed towards the normal ocean towards the right, but we fought Big Jelly, which was pretty straightforward to defeat. Now, a quick intermission before we go on to the rest of the bosses. Probably wondering why I'm keeping Star Platinum out for all this time. It would only do around 1 damage point around the start. Well, yes, but you've been paying attention! When you kill a mob or boss, he will gain XP. This XP will eventually cause him to level up, increasing his damage. So right now, it's like a buffed up minion that doesn't take up a minion slot. Might say that is a bit OP, and I'd have to agree with you, but only in the early game. Late game, it is absolutely not, and you'll see why. Okay, back to bosses. After Big Jelly, we faced a new boss called Fat Bat, or Viscount if you want to be official. This boss was in that underground room that I mentioned earlier, and is actually summoned with 5 pieces of blood. Yeah, really scary. The boss was pretty straightforward and easy to beat, though he does get quite annoying with those sonar bouncy thingamajiggies. We also versed other bosses like the Illusionist, a dungeon mini-boss, and the Granite Energy Storm, which is summoned in the Granite biome. But we finished off the hour with the Slime God. Technically, 3 bosses. Let me just cue this music. Boss has both Crimson and Corruption slimes attacking you, and Flying Orb. The orb will take over one of the giant slimes, making it immune and slightly buffing it to attack you more. Whilst you damage the bosses, they will grow smaller, but summon stronger baby slimes like the King Slime would. Once you defeat the 2 big slimes, the only thing left is to face this orb, a boss that is insanely fast, and if it hits me once, you start levitating. Unfortunately, for the first time we faced the boss, we died because we ran out of bullets. But luckily, the second time we were well prepared and defeated his ass. Hour 9 had us discover that the Slime God's drop could actually help us create new armor that was actually slightly better than Molten, so we got straight on that. Soon after, we versed the Buried Champion on the way down, and then finally the Wall of Flesh. No platform, we basically said screw it and destroyed the Wall of Flesh, placing our game into hard mode at 8 hours and 16 minutes. The Wall of Flesh also has a new mechanic where it will drop a biome key, and lucky us, we got the Crimson Key, which later on will become insanely useful. So, obviously, we did the method of smash the things, get the ores, titaniums, your kobolds, blah, 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 blah. We got full titanium by the end of the hour, and also a pirate invasion. Hour 10 had us soul farming, because unlike 1.4, modded is currently 1.3, meaning we could use the cheese method of gaining souls from the king slime in each biome. We also found out about a new sword that we could obtain called the Biome Blade. This melee weapon will shoot out projectiles quite like the Terra Blade. The catch is the projectile's damage will change depending on what biome you're in. I don't know what damage or debuffs they gives. You can go research that self. After a while of grinding, we finally got the Biome Blade, and I gotta say, it's pretty strong. We then began farming the hallowed mimics in hopes of getting a Daedalus Stormbow. Firstly, we got not the dildo. The second attempt though, we got a brand new weapon called the Boom Sword, and the bow as well. I mean, I'm not complaining, but hell yeah, dude. Basically said screw it after we got the item and summoned the Destroyer with no potions, no arena, no campfires, no heart lanterns, and let's just say, but after that, we did it again, this time with a bit of a setup, and we completely destroyed him. Aha, get it? We then went over to the ocean to kill the sharks. Hour 11 had us finishing off some shark farming, which only took about 10 to 20 minutes. Then we created the Mega Shark. Afterwards, we immediately faced the twins, and we did the Destroyer trick when we had no potions at all. But this time, we actually destroyed the twins. So being on that high, we decided to go up against Skeletron Prime. And, well, we defeated him. With all 3 mechanical bosses successfully killed, we headed towards the jungle to do the classic, you know, chloroform mining sequence with like a turtle shell, then life root. We got enough chloroform, but 0 turtle shells. So whilst killing turtles, we decided to make an arena to verse Plantera. Hour 12 had us continue to make the arena, and instead of finding turtle shells, we found this thing. We basically spent half an hour hunting different types of turtle shells and life roots, and then finally, at the end of it, we crafted a full set of turtle armor, and then got up to versing Plant. We did struggle a tiny bit against her, but in the end, we were successful. And then with Plant dead, we had one last plan in mind to finish the hour. We headed straight towards the dungeon to unlock the Crimson Chest to get one of my favorite weapons in the game, the Vampire Knives. Hour 13, which means we're halfway through. Give yourself a pat on the back. We then decided to go up and face many of the modded bosses as possible. We started with the Ice Spider, bingo, and found out about a new type of modded item which will be useful for a lot of crafting later on. This item is Essence. For example, the one dropped by the Ice Spider was Frost Essence. There's also Sky Essence and Hell Essence. They do have special names which aren't that, but I'm just describing where they come from, and I'm sure the comment section will be telling me what exactly they are and how dumb I am. Whilst farming the Frost Essence, we got a new pet called the Snow Owl that replaces the pet, or the comment section has already got a name, so not anymore, haha, name him. We then headed to a new Hell sub-biome called the Brimstone biome, which has the Brimstone Lady as the boss. We versed the boss, battling it with absolute ease. After defeating, we then decided to verse Calamitous, a boss that this mod pack is named after. You know, we're in for a good treat. Let's cue the music. Calamitous starts off by being a normal boss fight, but with some in-game text, everything just goes wrong. Real fight will kick in. He will do an attack that lowers your HP significantly, but luckily I'm a complete god among men and dodge most of it. The other thing he will do is summon grabby hands that will completely ruin your day. He doesn't just summon one, he summons 7. Not the grabby hands! Hour 14 had us go up against yet another boss called Cosco, which was actually pretty easy because it was easier than Destroyer on the boss list. Whoops. We then noticed how bad my wings were. Legit the worst ones in the game, and we're post Plantera. So the best way to deal with this fact is verse Calamitous again. Ha! We also received a little baby one, so there's that. Still noticing our accessories are, well, not the best. We decided to upgrade them a tiny bit, the boots in particular. This new item is called Angel Threads, which is actually really strong. It was also pretty easy to obtain, except for one item called a Harpy Ring, which you could only create at a Sky Mill. And who owns a Sky Mill? So we had to head up to a Sky Island, completely destroy it, but we need another feather. So we had to go back up, and it was a process. Eventually, we got the Angel Threads. We then decided to upgrade PP House just a tiny bit more, and also decide to upgrade our Biome Blade to a true Biome Blade. But we needed a lot of items from a new biome. My least favorite biome. This one is called the Abyss, which is underneath the acidic sea. To get down there, you need to do one of two things. One of the options is first find a Gills potion that makes your oxygen slowly go down, and then once it's gone, your health will go down really fast. The next is to gain a bubble that makes you able to breathe underwater from the mermaid that I mentioned we received after killing Big Clam. The catch is, if you take any form of damage, you will lose the bubble, and well, bye-bye health. So the best way is to build a teleporter system to the acidic seas, and then hope to God nothing harms you on the way down. Side note, the acidic seas does make you take damage, but it does not destroy the bubble. This process of going up and down trying to get the items legit took over an hour to get. So hour 15, 45 minutes into that hour, we got enough items to make the true Biome Blade, and then we went into our jungle dungeon to prepare to fight Golem. Then hour 16 arrives, where we fought Golem a fair amount of times actually to try and get 2 items, one being the Eye of Golem and the other being the Sunstone. We only managed to get nothing, and this is how many Sun Essences we had from Golem to show you how many goddamn times we killed him. So we said screw it and headed towards the vanilla endgame instead. We then went to go get a truffle worm, and we reached the ocean. We fought a new modded boss called the Leviathan, which has a mermaid and big whale, which is pretty easy, to be honest. But right as we were about to verse Duke Fishron, a solar eclipse occurred. So that was a bit of a minor inconvenience, yet we still defeated it with ease. We then went back to the ocean and fought Duke Fishron. And then finally, we entered the vanilla endgame and we first the cultists. They were completely destroyed. And right on top of us, the Stardust Pillar spawned. Don't worry, that was easily defeated. Then we went to face the Solar Pillar, try and gain the Solar Eruption, then the Nebula Pillar. And then finally, in the 17th hour, we defeated the Vortex Pillar and faced the Moonlord. Finally, 16 hours and 33 minutes in, we had completed the endgame of vanilla Terraria. But it was not over. There was heaps of modded bosses still remaining. One new item that the Moonlord did drop though was something called a Celestial Onion, which granted us an extra accessory slot. And with the death of the Moonlord, we could upgrade our Biome Blade even further to make the Mega Biome Blade. This then leads us on to our A team, where we tried to upgrade our player character, and we made this item called the Seraph Traces, which basically combines the wings and the boots, giving us that extra accessory slot. This feat took us quite a while, and also trying to get other items that would lead us onto hour 19. During hour 19, we discovered a new enemy that spawns in both the Hallowed and Hell biomes, acts like mini bosses with a few thousand health. These enemies will drop a new item that will allow us to create a new boss spawner, the Guardians, or the Orbs. Unfortunately, we did not have enough items to help our character because, well,
how do you defeat that?
so with this knowledge, we had to make many more upgrades to our character. And by further doing so, we gained solar armor and making the Ink Shield by the end of the hour. Hour 20, we set up to create a brand new accessory from Calamity that I have dubbed the Waifu Heart. You'll see why I called it that soon enough. We had to gain a bunch of rare items from many different bosses. So that's what we sought out to do. We already had the first item being the egg from the Desert Worm, if you remember at the start. Next, we needed something called the Rose Stone, which was from when it dropped, we immediately equipped it because, next we had to kill the Leviathan again, which dropped the Pearl of Enthrallment, then Calamitous for something called the Chaos Stone. Then we had to defeat a new boss called Cryogen, which is like an ice boss that I had not fought yet. We'll rarely drop something that we need called the Cryo Stone. Then another new boss, a lot harder, called the Plague Bringer, which was post-Golem, I think. You see, post-Golem, I think, there are new mobs that spawn in the jungle that are like nuclear and mechanical, and which drop a bunch of different cores. Use those cores to create the summoner, and then we went up against the Plague Bringer, and we defeated him and got the item first try. This then leads me on to hour 21, where we had to change the world into expert mode. That's right, you heard me correctly. It's an item called the Antagonizing Spirit and an item called the Calming Spirit. The Antagonizing Spirit turns the world into expert mode, and the Calming Spirit turns it right back. We also got a new item called a Zerg Potion. Basically, it's like a battle potion, except if the battle potion took black tar heroin. We also needed to go up to the Sky Islands whilst it was raining to gain an item off the Cloud Spirit. Once obtained, we then headed down to the desert biome, get the final two items from one mob called the Sand Elemental. She drops the same item, but basically one of them was an expert item and the other wasn't. We also encountered a new boss called the Great Sand Shark, which was pretty straightforward. And finally, after an hour and a half of farming, we had made the Waifu Heart. That is just... With this great gift that God has given me, we could finally beat the 3 orbs, which gave us an item to summon another boss called Providence. Cue the music. It was like the Moonlord, but if the Moonlord went through an anime training time skip and also sniffed coke. He had attacks that would debuff and destroy your health, an attack that if you got hit would automatically do 100 damage no matter what. He also summoned the orb from earlier, which completely overwhelmed me, and unfortunately we lost. So losing to this the first time, we had to get stronger. We made a new accessory called the Asgard's Valor, which is an upgraded version of the Ink Shield, and we also got new items that increases our max life, much like the life fruits. This then leads me on to the final 3 hours where we rematch against Providence and completely destroy his ass, making us victorious over Providence. And for the remaining hours, you ask, basically we killed a few other bosses but nothing of significance. We also decided to verse other events like the Pumpkin Moon. That was fun. And then finally, in the 24th hour, we faced up against Ragnarok, the final boss of Thorium. This is gonna be like some sort of Thor and Odin shit. Wait. It was all orb. Yes. No, seriously, follow my Insta and Twitter.